on, guys? It's Seth back with another Defense Wins Fantasy podcast, part of the Fantasyholics Podcast Network. It is win and get in time of the year. Week 14. Typically, your playoffs are starting next week, unless you're one of them crazies that moved it to 18, which don't do that. But we're focusing on some IDP players. It's a surprisingly important bye week this week in week 14 for these owners trying to figure out a way to win one more game to take them to the playoffs. So what are we going to do this week? We're going to keep it short and we're going to keep it sweet because your time is valuable. You got to look at a lot of other things. Defense shouldn't be something you're worried too much about because you got to focus, right? But you got guys on bye. You need that 1 week wonder play that nobody's talking about that's going to come out and have a great game. So we're going to talk about 2 linebackers, 2 D linemen, and 2 D backs that I think that you need to pick up that are going to have stellar weeks and will hopefully push you into a playoff spot. So we'll go ahead and get it started. We're going to start with the linebackers today. And we're going to look at one of the worst offenses in the league. That is Bronco Country, let's ride. But on the defensive side, they've been stellar. Honestly, unfairly good for how just terribly bad that offense has been. I feel bad for all these defensive players because they honestly deserve to be good enough to be in the playoffs at this point in time in the real NFL. But their team can't put up more than 10 points a game, and it's just getting embarrassing at this point in time. But we're here to talk about the defensive side, and I want to talk about Josey Jewell. This linebacker has been just playing lights out. Last week, he to the tune of having 18 total tackles, 10 assisted, 8 solo, in a 10-9 football game. The way that we're going to look at this is, listen, it's not a 1 week wonder. Last week he had 8 total tackles. Yeah, that's a far cry from 18. Week before 11. Week before that 10. Week before that 9. It's consistent numbers. If you got a guy on bye and you need somebody to play, not a household name, not a guy that people are probably even thinking, because Alex Anzalone is even the guy that most people talk about in Denver. But he's been getting outplayed by Josey recently. And if you need a guy that's going to be on the field a lot this week, they're playing the Chiefs. That offense for Denver is inept. The Chiefs are going to be on the field. The Chiefs are probably going to get a nice lead. Then the Chiefs are going to run the ball. Then you're just going to get opportunity after opportunity with Jewell here. So take the opportunity that I'm giving you and grab him if you need a linebacker that's going to give you that 1 week boom to get into the playoffs. I feel really good about his outcome this week. The next guy we're going to talk about is a guy that's really been picking it up at the end of the season. He's a rookie, and he's been overshadowed. We talked a little bit about him before. That's Chad Muma, linebacker for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Devin Lloyd was the high precedent pick, but Chad Muma was taken in the 3rd round. In the last few weeks, he has really started to pour it on. Last week, he had a sack and a half and 11 total tackles, 9 total tackles a week before that, 6 before that. He's really been revving up. He's been getting more opportunities as the season's gone on. And who do they have coming to town? The Tennessee Titans. The wanting to run the ball 100 times if possible Tennessee Titans. He's going to be in the box to be able to get some tackles. The offensive line is not the strongest in Tennessee, so there's opportunities to get some of those sack numbers as well. But Chad Muma is a guy in Week 14 that I think is going to be able to help propel you into the playoffs as a free agent pickup that's probably not on a team. Like I said, he's been kind of the forgotten guy there in Jacksonville with Foyesay Olokin and Devin Lloyd. But he's been out playing Lloyd as of late, and it's worth the pickup and play for this week. Moving on to our defensive linemen. First guy I'm going to talk about is Sam Hubbard for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Bengals have, an all right setup this week. They play against Cleveland. It's going to be a little bit of a revenge game. They got Deshaun Watson now, and honestly, Cleveland's offense looked super inept last week. Maybe that's just because of the change, but the big thing with him, with Sam Hubbard, is he's been on a little bit of a hot streak. Having a sack in the last 2 games, but he's also been getting consistent tackles. 3 last games, 6 the week before, 4 the week before that. So you're getting a floor with an opportunity to get some sack trends. Like I said, he's missed some time this year because of injury, but the fact of the matter is this guy will come and pick it up and take care of business this week against Cleveland. It is a statement game for Cincinnati, and it's in Cincinnati. They're going to come out, and Sam Hubbard's going to have a sack to a sack and a half this game and help, once again, propel your team into the playoffs. Now, the next guy we're going to talk about is part of a very, very strong defense. Honestly, has been having a really good year, a bit inconsistent at times, so that's why he might not be on people's radars. Might have been a guy that's gotten picked up and dropped a few times in your league, and now I'm talking about Dorance Armstrong of the Dallas Cowboys. His DN has had 8 sacks this year, but he's coming off a game of only two assisted tackles. But the game before that, a sack. The game before that, 2 sacks. Dallas is playing Houston this week. Dallas is going to destroy Houston this week. Dorance Armstrong is a rotational guy, but if they get ahead, tremendously ahead in this game, like they did in Minnesota, he's the kind of guy that's going to be staying out there for the full game. They're going to pull some of their other guys off the field if it's a complete blowout. But Dorance Armstrong will be the guy that then might get benefit in more tackle situations. The big focus with him, though, is sacks. And against this Houston offense, that Dallas defense is going to feast. And they're going to focus on Parsons. And that gives the door open for Dorance Armstrong to make some noise on this Dallas defense against Houston. Once again, get him for this week. Be happy that you did. We'll see you in the playoffs. Final 2 guys I'm going to talk about. I told you it's going to be short and sweet. But the final 2 guys I'm going to talk about are D-backs. And the first one we're going to talk about is Jerry Jacobs for the Detroit Lions. Now, he has been on a tear. Relatively speaking, of course. Not too big of a tear, or he might not actually be available. And maybe he's not. But he took over the role in November and has continued to get better and better. Last week, he had a little bit of a down week against Jacksonville with 3 solo tackles. But against Buffalo, he had 6 solos. Against the Giants, he had 6 solos. He's also getting some pass defenses in there as well. Jerry Jacobs is the kind of guy, if you have a safety on bye, a D-back on bye that you need somebody to fill in that's not going to give you a 0, that's going to give you hopefully right around double-digit points, this is the guy that I would go after. There's other guys that have a much higher boom potential, but I mean, it's also Kirk Cousins. I mean, there is the opportunity. Grant's, it's 1 o'clock, Kirk Cousins, so you're probably going to get okay Kirk Cousins. But I expect this game to be high scoring, which I expect the Vikings to be throwing the ball late into the game. And hopefully that ends up being more and more tackles and maybe even a big play for Jerry Jacobs of the Detroit Lions. But he's my safe play to make sure that you don't get goose. That's one of the worst things on defense is when you end up getting a 0 out of a guy. And the final guy that we're going to talk about today is Jordan Whitehead of the New York Jets. Now, this is a guy that I was high on coming into the season. And I talked about him halfway through the season that it was just kind of underwhelming, wasn't really doing much. But since November 6th, this guy has been averaging over 5 tackles a game. Last game having 11 total tackles. The game before that, 5. The game before that, 6. The game before that, 4. But he had an interception. This defense has come alive. It's got a fire with Mike White as quarterback and playing against the Buffalo Bills that, 1, throw the ball a tremendous amount, and 2, have had a quarterback that has been a little bit unwieldy of late. Now, last week he played a good game. I was expecting Josh Allen to possibly throw an interception or 2. Had the opportunity. The defense didn't make the plays on it. But this week, Jordan Whitehead is going to have the opportunity to get tackles and possibly get a turnover in their matchup with Buffalo on Sunday. Like I said, guys, I didn't want to take up a lot of your time this week. There's a lot of waiver wire action. There's a lot of I'm trying to get everything taken care of. I focused on what do we do to get into the playoffs this week. Last week I focused on who do we need to look at for future in dynasty type leagues. But these are some guys that should be out on waiver wires that give you a great opportunity to come into your matchup this week and hopefully take home the W. And if that means you're in the playoffs, even better. And if it doesn't mean that you're in the playoffs, but you knock somebody out, that's also extremely sweet. So don't sleep on that feeling because nothing's better. Well, not anything. But if you can't make the playoffs, nothing's better than making sure another team doesn't make them with you. That being said, guys, have a great Week 14, and remember that defense wins fantasy.